Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. GT, first of all, Mark is on the train today, joined as always by Grant Turner. How robust are the freak sales?
It's been great, buddy. I'm really happy that the community was able to get that shoe back. So excited for everybody to start up wrestling season here with, Super 32 preseason nationals and right into the collegiate season. So
I looked last night. I swear, people, we do some research in preparation for this show. And I looked on there and I saw how many sizes were already sold out. So it's obviously gone really well and probably exceeded Mother Nike's expectations in some sense, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is there a chance you guys will come up with more sizes, or this is a one and done sort of thing?
I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to that shoe's a classic. There's, shoes from different companies throughout history that people always are drawn to, and I don't know if it's the guys that wore them or, and I say guys because, if they're old school, is back really when only men was wrestling at the senior level, but they're super cool, man. I remember taking a sneak peek of them, and I think everybody who gets them will be more than happy. So lots to get to this week. We will touch briefly on Super 32. As you mentioned, it's probably the biggest folk style tournament in the country at the high school level, GT. I think Flo put out an article. I talked to David Bray last week or Monday, I can't remember, about helping with the spring event that Nike's a part of. And I think the number he said was 180, give or take, with people, canceling or signing up last minute, of the 280 ranked guys are in this tournament. And if people wonder how you get to 280, it's 14 weights times their top 20. Okay. But basically that's 18 out of 28. That's 9 out of 14. it's almost 70%. It's definitely over 2/3. So that's just bonkers, man. And the seeding there, there's I looked at the preliminary seeds. There's guys that I know that are really freaking good, but they're like the 18 seeds. And, and you and I have been to tournaments where there isn't even somebody who should be the 6th seed. They should just start drawing names in after 4 or 5. So it's a great tournament to watch if you love high school wrestling. And it's a great tournament to watch if you love college wrestling, because a lot of these guys will end up obviously in college. And it's probably a tournament that somebody like Nick Mitchell keeps an eye on, right? That there's guys there that potentially end up at an NEI or at a Grandview, right?
Oh, yeah. I think that there's a lot of, I was just briefly running over some of the information and notes from Flo did a really good job of putting up some, seeds and predictions and kind of some backstory on some of the weight classes. So if you get a chance, go to Flo Wrestling and check that out.
Yeah.
But, I think it's a big thing, too, for, the kickoff of the season. A lot of guys switching weight classes and, people that were once again, high school kids, one could be 112 pounds one year and then 160 pounds the next year just because they grew a whole bunch. So it's cool to see.
For sure. I think there's a lot of, matchups there. And we should also point out Intermat and Willie at Rockfin. Willie's heavily involved with the seeding of that tournament. So those guys love to do deep dives on high school wrestling and frankly are more immersed in it than you and I are. And so we don't want to take their shine or do anything like that. And GT, I talk to you about this all the time. And before you were on the pod, when I was at track, we were told, don't talk about what Flo's saying. Don't talk about what anybody else is saying. And it's so great now, the freedom we have, thanks to USA Wrestling and Gary Abbott, to go, hey, these guys did a great article. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Go take a look at it. viewers guides, things like that are really important for people to have a great experience. This is one you might want to set your notifications on, if you're trying to see certain guys wrestle, because it's fast and furious there. So speaking of notifications, GT, I sat down with Dave Matthews, not from the Dave Matthews Band, but from USA Wrestling, and got a crash course in something that's coming out from USA Wrestling. So excited to learn more about that, but just keep an eye on this down the line, folks. USA Wrestling is doing some pretty innovative things. So we're working on a podcast about that on Matt Chat and things like that. So lots to look at there. I think the other thing that was the big news, GT, was NLI, which is the National Letter of Intent, which is different than NIL, name, image, likeness, has been proposed to just be eliminated by the NCAA. For people that don't understand what that means, this is a super Reader's Digest short version. I will, as the older person in this relationship, I will use me as the coach and Grant as the example, or as a student example. So I signed Grant to a scholarship. The scholarship financial commitment is the value piece to him. The NLI, the National Letter of Intent, is the value piece to me and my institution. So that way both sides of the contract have value. I can't just give Grant a full scholarship and he signs nothing in return. I could, and Grant would like that, but there's no value there for our side, for Mirikitani University. He agrees to come to school and all that sort of thing. That contract used to be hugely binding, that as long as I renewed him, and I could wait till the very last minute to renew him, he couldn't talk to anybody else, do anything else. Now that you can just go in the portal whenever you want, and then it used to be there was an in-between thing, like where you could go in and ask for a release, and a school could release you if they wanted to, but only to certain schools and all this other stuff. Now we're at the point you can just leave. I mean, we saw this happen in Iowa, where Glazer and those guys left late because they brought Buchanan and Teamer in. And I think most of us saw that as fair, but like emotions are almost out of this conversation, at least initially. What they're saying now is because the student athletes have so much freedom, that NLI doesn't mean anything because they can sign it and they changed the transfer rule now too. It used to be if you could not go to 3 4-year schools in a row unless there was a triggering event, like a coach being fired or something like that. Now they're saying you can go to 5 schools in 5 years. So this is just a bunch to unpack. And then I'm just writing down another thing I want to talk to you about before we get into our picks. When somebody who's still in the coaching world, and I know obviously you guys have a division of labor there at Grandview, and the NLI applies to you guys, but not this roster cap and other stuff. If anything, NAI is the opposite of roster cap. They want as many people as possible. And it's how these universities in smaller towns especially stay afloat. What are your thoughts on this? And I will say this, I wish this was around in the late 80s because my family, we would not have been figuring out academic money and institutional aid and all these other things. It was just, you would have just gotten your money and gone. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, there's a lot. When you say that there's a lot to unpack, there's a lot to unpack. There's so many different aspects of this that is beyond us, like financially, academically, like athletically. We could spend at least an entire docu-series on examples of how this could work. Even if we talked about like Glazier and some of those other guys that left right away. The kids that are coming in, kids that have went to 5 institutions in 5 years, as long as their academics, they allow them to be able to do so. We haven't even talked about like grad transfers.
Right.
There's so much that is like unprecedented changes in collegiate athletics is upon us. Basically the dissolving of the National Letter of Intent program, which has been a part of NCAA athletics for 50 years or 50 or 60 years. Conference realignment, NIL, name, image, and likeness is now a real thing, here to stay, federally governed. There's so much to like unpack for an athletic department and the kids and parents. So I don't think that we've even remotely come close to understanding the impact of what just basically came down this week for a national letter of intent. And I think we're still not even, was it 2 years ago that NIL became a big deal when it came? Like, think about what has happened in other sports. I mean, once again, we're wrestling focused, but.
Now it's funny you say that. I'm going to interrupt and get out of the way. Like the Vanderbilt quarterback, Vanderbilt beat Alabama this weekend, in case anybody cares in football, and Alabama just beat Georgia to jump to number 1 and lose. Or Nick Saban had said ahead of time, like the one place easy to play in the SEC was Vanderbilt, and then Alabama goes down and loses. And the quarterback posted, any of y'all want to get in on this NIL, hit up my agent, and put his phone number out there. And I love it because that was always happening, but like it was all, in the dark and in corners and, like you kind of had to hide everything. And now it's just like you put it out there. So go ahead. Not just giving context for what you're saying.
Well, I think that's part of it, right? So it's like, okay, something like that happens. And now all of a sudden, like who wants to get a part of his NIL and talk to his agent and all that other stuff? Like kids were not able to maximize any of that. Like, I think, to football, like, once again, that's really a huge sport in the United States. But I think that all of the kids that go to, and I'm going to just use the example of basketball, like the March Madness kids, where they hit like game winners and they beat Kansas or they beat Gonzaga, or and it's like, oh, well, that kid, he could basically monetize some of those things, which all of a sudden, if you're not a sports nerd, you don't remember, I'm going to throw out a little Northern Iowa reference here. Ali Faroukmanesh, who knocked off Kansas back in the day. But, you have these situations where kids can get some additional funding or like, just to like be a part of what their story is, right? So, and I know that sports brands or brands in general or local establishments or local businesses want to be a part of, local tales and things like that. So, wild, unpacked collegiate athletics as we get into our third season of that.
Yeah, there's a couple things I wrote down that kind of are offshoots of this. Number one, if you ever watch these 30 for 30 specials, one of the ones that's interesting is Johnny Manziel and how he got in trouble with the NCAA. And he was a quarterback at Texas A&M, for people that don't follow football, that won the Heisman. And I would say had a pretty disappointing NFL career for how good he was in college, but still respect. The guy was an absolute game breaker in college. And one of the things that he got in trouble for was signing autographs and jerseys, because he couldn't make money off of his own jersey. And he's like, this is ridiculous. I go down to the campus bookstore and my jersey's $100 and no one else, and someone else is getting all the money. Now what Johnny Manziel wanted to do is so far behind the times. Like that's already happening, right? Like they're just mailing these guys shirts and their jerseys or whatever, and they're signing them ahead of time and shipping them out to people. And there's some sort of cut. Like, hey, I'm the manufacturer. It cost me this much to make it. I'm taking care of all the shipping in the back end. So here's the split. The second thing is interesting is this, and I'm involved with a couple parents' families, and one of them has been keeping me highly updated on all the different recruiting trips they've taken. And the conversations about NIL are real. Like they're telling these kids up front, here's what you're going to get. But here's one of the things that kids and families need to realize. Like if a school costs $40,000 or $60,000, excuse me, and I give you 40 Grant as a scholarship, and I go, you're going to get the other 20 as NIL. People don't understand this. You're going to owe money because the $20,000 is taxable. So 20 is not 20. Like, unless they've got a way to not give you, the athlete, 20, and somehow it goes to the school, or Mirikitani car dealership says, I'm going to pay the school $20,000 to pay the collective, okay, which is hopefully what they're explaining to people, because then they can pay the collective, they can take the tax deduction, and the kid doesn't receive the money. But then the kid's not really getting the money. It's just a full ride. It might as well just be a full scholarship. It's just different if the school's out of their 9.9. But I was talking to an assistant coach who I am positive you know and have a good relationship with. And I said, I actually think I should just start a business, that I should get somebody who knows contracts, somebody who knows law, somebody who knows negotiation, somebody who knows financial advising. And the athlete, the family hires this group, and the group charges 4% of what the package is, 1% for each person in there. So, I mean, not much, but just set certain things up. Like, here's why you want to become incorporated. Here's why you take the money this way. Here's just all the trappings of things. Because I used to always say this to people, when you're getting recruited, you get recruited once in your life, maybe twice, okay? And the family goes to it maybe 2 or 3 times at the most, depending on how many stud athletes they have in their family. The coach is recruiting 12 months of the year for 20 years straight. You know, I mean, they're doing this process 400 or 500 times versus your 1 or 2. That is not equal knowledge on the playing field. So I just think it's super fascinating. And I will say this, there's some coaches that I know that I respect, and they're like, dude, we can't keep up with all the rules. They keep changing every week. Like, we're trying to tell kids the truth, and something we told them last week is wrong now. Like, if I recruited you a month ago and I'm like, well, you signed the NLI and I give you the scholarship, you're like, well, not anymore. You know, like, not anymore. And a month ago, I was telling you the truth, and now that's not the truth. It's not a lie, but it's misinformation.
Yeah.
Because the playing field changed. So it's wild, man. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's absolutely crazy what's going on. And I think you said it best. There's going to be more before there's less coming down the pipe. Like, and the other thing, and you said this as well, we are wrestling centric. None of these rules are designed for wrestling. This is all to keep the NCAA afloat and to keep these schools from just collaborating and eliminating the NCAA as a governing body, so that a bunch of these guys can keep their jobs that don't really do anything, and to just revenue share back to these schools. But now the NCAA wants Congress to step in and regulate NIL because they don't know how to do it. They opened Pandora's box. And here's the thing, like, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, like the Iowa thing and how much money they offered Teamer and how much money they offered Keeter and how much money they offered Buchanan and all this stuff. Think about football and basketball, which actually generate revenue. And you're that good in that sport. Those guys are laughing at the alleged 500,000. Like, that's pocket change. So, I mean, the cool thing about this is kids can make a living now, right? Kids can make, you know, and the one dad I talked to, he goes, I'm not paying for college. He goes, I paid for private lessons. I paid to fly my kid all over the country. My kid's ranked in the top X because I don't want to give anything away. But my kid's ranked high enough that I don't need to be paying for this. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Because there's money there now. It's not like, we don't have any money. It's like, no, there's clearly money. And that always eliminates a lot of schools too, because, like, well, if I'm not paying, I got to go to one of these schools that has the money. So one other thing, and we'll get into our picks. So if this thing happens, and there was one lawsuit that got settled, but the other lawsuit, if they go to this limit of 30-person rosters, 30-man rosters in D1, like, Flo put out Ohio State's depth chart yesterday, 2 days ago, yesterday, something like that. And great job by those guys. But if I counted correctly, there's 40 kids on the team. Okay. Somebody goes, okay, well, 10 of them got to go. That's the simple math. And you go, okay, let's say 6 of them are seniors. Okay. Well, then you got to cut 4. Well, you're not done, because if you signed 5 guys, now you got to cut 5 more. If you have 5 incoming freshmen, that gets you to 30. Do you really think these guys are not going to leave a slot or 2 open for the portal? I mean, they have to. Or they're going to cut somebody super late. Like, that's what's going to happen. And then if they gave them a scholarship, how does that – these kids are going to be like the kids that are the 28th, 29th, 30th person, they're not going to get their scholarships till like August 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's going to be chaos, like absolute chaos. But people need to understand that, like, when you look at certain rosters, like for you guys, you're in Iowa, you're an Iowa State alum, but you live in Iowa. Wrestling's important in Iowa. I live in Missouri. You look at those rosters, you can kind of do the math on, like, Aiden Sinclair just came in to school this year at Mizzou. But if he was coming in next year, he's getting one of the 30 spots. I mean,
right.
Guy can't be top 10 pound for pound and not have one of the 30 spots. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. And it may end up in a little more parity, GT, in the sense that somebody who's pretty dang good will go somewhere else and get to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of saw that with Barraclaw going to Utah Valley, right? Like, he wasn't going to start this year at Penn State. And when we're going to get to these rankings, he's ranked in the top 10. So, okay. I got a couple things pulled up here. Here we go. All right. So we're going to get to 149. So just so people kind of get caught up here. The last year, the people that left: Gomez, Tyler Kasak's moving up, Casey Swiderski is redshirting, Quinn Kinner's gone, Graham Rooks is gone, Cody Bond is gone. Echemendia is most likely moving up. GT's guy, Lachlan McNeil, is definitely moving up. Guys coming off red shirt / gray shirt: Ty Whalen, Princeton, Cannon Webster, who had a really good year at Illinois, Panero Johnson, Iowa State. I think he has to miss the first meet or 2 of the year. We're not sure if he's going to go 49 or 57 with Echemendia or Echemendia. Do we know how to say his name correctly, GT?
I've never been I've never been corrected either way. So, like,
Fair.
Yeah, I've never been told, like, oh yeah, dude,
that's wrong. Yeah. Okay.
I would either talk to, like, Jason Bryant or Dort or somebody that, like, has actually talked to him to confirm pronunciation.
There you go. Okay, so Iowa State's got an interesting conundrum here with those 2 guys potentially. This is Flo's article. Oh, and Van Ness comes back off of injury. Sorry. They have their favorites listed as Henson, Van Ness, and Lovett. They have the second tier as Waters, whoever's coming out of Iowa State, Parko, Arrington, Whalen, McNeil. And then they have sort of their dark horses or people to get on as Lamer, Abbas, Webster, D'Amelio, Real Buto. They have Larkin listed. Larkin is not wrestling this year. I can just tell you this. Like, he's not wrestling. Talk to Eric Larkin. So then if you go to the rankings, here's the rankings at Intermat: Henson, Van Ness, Waters, Parko, Lovett, McNeil, Echemendia, Arrington, Lamer, Whalen, Webster, D'Amelio, Abbas, Ethan Fernandez, Jordan Williams, the transfer to Little Rock, Willichell, Ethan Miller, Real Budo. Down the line, Carter Young is listed here for Oklahoma State, so that's interesting, and he's listed. So there's 3 Oklahoma State guys in here: Jordan Williams, Carter Young, and Sammy Alvarez. So that's interesting. I'm looking at Flo's rankings, not a lot different. William McDougall's in the top 16. So let me get to the document, GT. And we will. Oh, by the way, here were our picks last year. You had Lovett, and then Henson, Parco, Van Ness, Mahler, Gomez, Abbas, Pinheiro. So you definitely get a mulligan for Pinheiro, and you get, I mean, Gomez was in the finals. You had the two finalists. You had 2 and 6. That's really good. I think we all had Mahler in here. So really good picks by you. I had Henson, Van Ness. Oh, Van Ness was the other guy we get a mulligan on because of the injury. Excuse me. Henson, Van Ness, Lovett, Parco. So I had Henson winning it. Good for me. Van Ness, Lovett, Parco, Mahler, Pinheiro, Gomez. I had at 7, so you had him higher. GT had Lovett and then Gomez, Henson, so he had him 2-3. So well done by him. And Van Ness and Pinheiro. And we all missed on Mahler, and he missed on Voinovich. So, you want to go first at 49, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can definitely go first at 49.
All right. And there's only 2 of us, so we can just go ahead and let me know where you are.
All right. So, I'm going to put Caleb Henson back in the driver's seat. I think he's a monster. I think he's going to be really, really good for Virginia Tech. I think he's going to do really, really big things. I think he's just a stud. Just the way he wrestles, he's a monster. I'm going to put Ridge Lovett in the finals. I'm going to put Kyle Parco at 3.
Okay.
I'm going to put Ty Waters at 4. That guy is so good.
He's really good on top, man. Like sneaky good on top, but really good, period. Yeah.
I'm going to take Lachlan McNeil at 5. I'm going to take Iowa State at 6.
That is fair. We're just going to do that.
Once again,
Pinheiro / Etch. We'll just do that. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So then basically it comes down to 7 and 8. I'm going to take Jordan Williams.
Okay. That'd be big for Little Rock if they get that. They get big team points. They got 2 All-Americans through the first 4 weights here.
Yep, I like that. And then I'm going to take Jackson Arrington to get 8th.
So a couple things to point out here. Arrington was a super high seed last year. I think he was the 3 seed. Williams was hurt going into nationals last year. Waters, as we said, we watched him at the Big 12. Was like, yo, this dude is a problem. Okay. And then Parco, it'll be interesting because he's kind of those 6-year guys, right? Like there's a lot of evidence they don't do great. And then you look at like a Gomez and he does do great. And Parco's always finished on an even number. So you feel like maybe this is his last year. More likely he's going to finish on an odd number, try to win your last college match, all that sort of thing. He hasn't done a lot in freestyle, so maybe doesn't have as many international aspirations. So this literally could be the last dance for him. So I don't know how much my picks are going to differ. Let me just look and see here. So, the other thing I wanted to point out is Lovett lost last year. And this coach has said it. They were watching another match. They were watching Antrell Taylor wrestle, and they told him to pick top. Like it was 0-0, and he had 2 minutes of riding time. If he just picks down, the worst that happens, get thrown to his back. But if he gets rode out, they go to overtime. If he gets away, Henson has to take him down to win.
Yep.
And they had another super close match at Vegas. So I'm going to go Lovett to win it. I mean, he was the favorite last year. I think he was the 1 seed coming in the nationals. I'm going to take Henson to take 2nd. Let me see who else I got here. I'm going to take Iowa State 3rd. GT, am I crazy?
Well, I think one thing that not to butt in on your picks, but I just want to see what Shane Van Ness looks like after the injury. So I kind of left him off of my list. I think he's going to be really good, but I want to see, like how he comes back. Because a lot of injury stuff always occurs. So once again, I'm happy to be proven wrong by not leaving him off the podium, but I just want to make sure that like he's healthy enough to come back.
Well, I think he's either top 4 or off the podium, right? Like, I mean, I don't think you're like, well, he's not like he's a blood round guy. Like you're trying to figure out how good he is, right? Like he's a legit dude or he's not healthy. And then what would be interesting is you could see K-Sack go down to 49 and you could see a Facundo sneak in at 57 if that were to happen.
Yep.
Or a Messenbrink. I mean, I don't know why he would do that, but well, I guess I could. I mean, Messenbrink's probably could win 57. If you think he can beat Teamer, he can win 57. So, okay, back to the picks that are guaranteed to be wrong. All right, so I got Van Ness at 4. Okay. I'm going to do this in weird order. I'm going to put Waylon from Princeton at 8. I just feel like he's going to get on the podium. He had a really good year last year. Kind of sneaky. So I think that I'm going to put Parco at 6. I'm going to put your boy Lachlan at 5. I like that. And I had somebody here for 7. Oh, Waters. So, I mean, and I think a lot of it's going to depend on seeding, right? Like you got a bunch of Big Ten guys in this weight. If Waters loses to Iowa State, say in the finals of the Big Ten, then, that could affect things. But I'm not sure I'm crazy about these picks. Like maybe I'm going to switch McNeil and Waters. I'm going to put McNeil at 7 and Waters at 5. Okay. So I've got mine: Lovett, Henson, Iowa State, Van Ness, Waters, Parco, McNeil, Whalen. All right. 157 last year. So GT, I sent you a text late last night. Iowa State posted the wrestle-offs and Cody Chittum's not in them. Does that mean anything?
Just maybe it could be that like he's either hurt or banged up or sick or something like that. Like it's just probably something along those lines. I wouldn't necessarily read too much into it. Once again, it's just wrestle-offs. It's not like all of a sudden he's not going out for a duel or something.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so Mark last year had Shapiro, Chittum, Messenbrink, Franek, Andonian, Teamer, Peyton Robb, Brayton Lee. So I'm going to give him credit for Messenbrink because I did the same thing with Messenbrink. But, I mean, he did pretty good. Shapiro, Messenbrink, Franek, Andonian, and Teamer and Robb were all All-Americans. I had Messenbrink at first, so if you count Haynes, like I'm doing good on the champ so far. Shapiro second, Teamer third. Have the top 3 really close. Then Chittum, Andonian, Franek, Ed Scott, Peyton Robb. You had Teamer, Shapiro, Franek, Haynes. So you actually had Haynes. So good for you. Andonian, Robb, Chittum, and you had Cardenas, which was correct as an All-American. Hey, we can't have that good of hair and be that smart. That's not fair.
Yeah, I gotta stay on it, man.
So well done by you. All right. So 57. Let me pull up the rankings here. So Flo's rankings at 57 are Teamer, Shapiro, Cardenas, Kasak, Keller, Downey, Taylor, Antrell Taylor, who's down from 65, Ed Scott, Patty Gallagher, Tommy Askey, Panero, Johnny Lovett, Teague Travis, who I'm going to guess that GT has in the 7th or 8th slot. I don't know. Chumbley, Joey Blaze, Vinny Zerbin, Chase Saldate. Intermat, Teamer, Shapiro, Keller, Taylor. They got Taylor higher, Kasak, Scott, Downey, Askey, Teague Travis at 9. They got DJ McGee up at 15 from George Mason. Not super familiar with him. Legend Lamer, they have at 19. Sonny Santiago, they have at 22. Cal Miller, they have in here at 26. They got Larkin ranked, and Larkin, again, is not wrestling. So let me see if Flo did their preview on 57. Okay. I don't think they did, but we'll check. So, all right. So this is an interesting way. I mean, I think anytime the number one preseason guy switches schools, it's kind of interesting, right, GT, the teamer?
Yeah. I mean, I think, once again, teamer's been really good for a long time. So it's been something that, like, we've all kind of known, like, he's right on the top of all that kind of thing. So I'm excited to see him wrestle for the Hawks. I think it's going to be an interesting scenario, seeing him in a different color of singlet, because I've seen him in Arizona State stuff for a long time, but I think he's going to do really well.
So I'm fascinated by this because his style is not like Tom and Terry. Like, he likes to float. He likes to take periods of not a lot of activity. He likes to flurry. He likes to flash.
Yep.
And I coach JUCO, so I'm here for all that. That's standard operating procedure for us. That's a Tuesday. But it's not Iowa style. Do you think they try to change any of that? Do you think they maybe just try to tweak his hand fighting? Do you think they just embrace it? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of guys that don't necessarily wrestle like the specific quote unquote Iowa style that have done extremely well over the years, right? So yeah. I think they just continue to tweak what he does. I definitely know that they will probably focus on, hand fighting, shape, mentality. But once again, you only got him for a loaner for a year. So kind of, once again, you don't necessarily need to tear everything back down to build it back up. He's right. Already pretty dang good. So you even saw that with, Franek, Caliendo, coming in. Like, they didn't really mess with those guys' styles all that much. You watch Jared Franek, when he was a sophomore, and you watch him when he's a senior, he's almost like stylistically identical, right? So,
but his style was much more Iowa-ish to begin with. So that's the only reason why I bring it up. Yeah.
But I haven't necessarily, even when Woods went, he was really dynamic. I think he was dynamic even with Iowa, maybe less, maybe towards when he was a senior, but he was still really dynamic in the first couple, like that first year with Iowa. So, I think they'll do really well with him.
A couple of other things just to point out to people. Shapiro had that concussion last year against Cardenas, took I want to say this, I don't want it to sound like the match had a long break in it, which is concussion protocol, okay, which is what they should have done, okay, but there was a long break. He came back, didn't seem right, kind of lost the match late to Cardenas, and then came back and beat him on the backside. So that part's interesting to me. Kasak coming up is interesting, and Taylor coming down is interesting. And the argument with Kasak is like, well, he moved up 2 weights. Well, he did, in the sense that he was a 41 when the year started behind Bartlett. But he took third at 49. And by the end of the year, I don't think he was trying to hold 141, like, for any reason. And I actually ran into him at Power and Light, and he's like, Coach, I want to wrestle next year. Like, I don't want a red shirt. So it feels like he had that conversation with Kale and company, and they're like, well, here's your path. But I would bet $10,000 they certify him in 49 just to be safe, which is what all smart coaches do. So, those are kind of the highlights there. I think there's just a lot of interest. And here's the other thing here. So who do we think goes 57 for Iowa State? Do we think it's Pinheiro? Do we think it's Chittum? What do we think here?
I'd put Pinheiro in there at 57.
Okay. And then we just think Chittum's at 65, or he's out of the lineup?
I don't know. But I just feel like that Pinheiro is, I think he's better than Chittum at 57. So that's why I would put him at that weight class. Now, that, once again, it's just personal opinion. Nothing like that. I have no inside information. And once again, I also think Cody Chittum is All-American caliber at whatever weight class that he decides that he would like to be at.
Right.
I'm just giving the nod to the world team member who's looked really good in the past couple of months.
Yeah.
So, I'm just going to give the nod to Pinheiro just because.
Yeah, and this is a weird weight because you don't have any returning champ here. You only have one returning finalist. It's a guy that switched schools. A guy who's a 5th or 6th-year senior. You have a guy like Ed Scott who was seeded really high last year and then didn't place. And then you have these guys moving up and down. And it kind of feels like there could be a lot of topsy-turvy here, right? Like maybe not 125-ish in 2024. Like one of the questions I was going to ask, and I'll wait till Mark comes back, but like how many of these guys do we see this year never dropping out of the number 1 slot? Personally, I think there'll be more than one guy at 25. I think that's a super safe bet. 33, I feel like, I mean, Crookham could stay there all year, but he's a true sophomore. Things happen. 41, I think it depends. I think Aliras can go undefeated till the tournament because he's wrestling the Big 12 schedule, not the Big 10 schedule. 49 feels like 49 could change as soon as Vegas because a bunch of those guys hit there. And then this feels like it could change too. I mean, I don't think Cornell wrestles Iowa, but I don't know what Frank's doing with his December duels. I just know there's some good matchups there. Teamer's going to have to wrestle a different schedule too, right? He has to wrestle a Big 10 schedule, not a Pac-12 schedule, which doesn't exist anymore. Arizona State's non-conference schedule is probably good as anybody in the country's, but their conference schedule was what they had to wrestle and wasn't great. So, okay. And then the other thing that I think is interesting here is, so they have, Cardenas has to be up at 65. Is that what we're doing here? Or is he redshirting or what's going on? Why is he not ranked?
I don't know why he's not ranked, but Hunter Garvin is at 65.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And he's not in the rankings up at 74.
Well, Flo's got him in, Cardenas in, and Intermat doesn't. So I'm just going to assume they missed him, which happens, right? We've done the rankings. It's hard. Yeah. No criticism. It's just you don't want to miss. Like I don't want to miss guys on my pick that are really good. Okay, so let me see who I got here. Okay, here's my top 5 so far. I got Shapiro 1. I got Teamer 2, Kasich 3, Cardenas 4, Antrell Taylor 5. I'm going to go Ryder Downey 6. Ed Scott 7. And I'm going to go Teague Travis 8.
All right, run that for me again.
Okay, hold on, because I got to put in the schools. So this is how I got to do the. Okay, Shapiro 1, Teamer 2, Kasich 3, Cardenas 4, Taylor 5, Downey 6, Ed Scott 7, Teague Travis 8.
Okay.
Tell me where I'm wrong, sir.
Okay, and the right picks are.
You guys are not watching, only listening. I was in the middle of a drink of water. That almost got ugly.
All right, I'm going to take Ja'Cory Teamer to win it, okay. Shapiro to get second, Pinheiro Johnson to get third.
Oh, my God, I forgot about him. All right, go ahead.
Kasich for fourth, Cardenas fifth, Ryder Downey 6th, Teague Travis 7th, and Keller 8th.
Okay. All right. All right, who do you have 6th? That was the one I missed. Downey?
Downey.
Okay, so I'll make sure I read these back to you. Teamer, Shapiro, Pinheiro, Kasich, Cardenas, Downey, Teague, Travis, Keller.
Correct.
I like your picks better. Bothers me. I mean, I think I would keep I think I like Ed Scott over Keller, but I should get Pinheiro in there. But I mean, if Pinheiro goes 49, I mean, I think, let's say this. I think for Iowa State's lineup, they're better if Echemendia can make 41. Pinheiro goes 49, Chittum goes 657, and if Chittum lost in the blood round or placed, we wouldn't be really surprised by either one of those. Yep. I think it'd be interesting if Chittum were on the bench this year, because we had that whole conversation about, do you want Chittum or do you want the Ferraris, right? Because that was really what happened. Like, for people that don't remember, Chittum was committed to Iowa, like took a gray shirt year there. When they brought the Ferraris in, he was like, it's them or me. They said it's them. They didn't say that, but they're like, we're keeping them. And so he left. And on the surface, it seemed like, well, take 3 guys over 1 is a better pick. Well, 2 are already gone. Now, Chittum hadn't been that great either versus expectations, and Angelo hasn't wrestled a college match yet. I mean, so it might be a big fat nothing when it's all said and done, but it's interesting. Okay, we're going to get to 65, and I'm glad that Mark's not here, because he had David Carr winning it, and you and I had O'Toole winning it. He had Carr, O'Toole, Hamidi, Caliendo, Amin, Ramirez, Hall, Facundo. So he got a bunch wrong here, okay, to be fair. Hamidi DNP'd, Amin DNP'd, correct? He didn't place last year. Ramirez DNP'd, and Facundo didn't wrestle. So there's that. You had O'Toole, Carr, Caliendo, Amin, Hamidi, Ramirez, Olenek, Facundo. So a little better. I had O'Toole, Carr, Amin, Caliendo, Hamidi, Haynes, Ramirez, Olenek. So if you give me the grace of Haynes and Messenbrink switched up, maybe the school thing was a little better. All right, so let's go to 65. This will probably be it for us for today. Here's intermatch ranking. Messenbrink, Caliendo, Hunter Garvin, Peyton Hall, Ramirez, Cam Amin, Barraclaw, who we mentioned earlier, Garrett Thompson, Ohio, Olgan, Oregon State, Andrew Sparks, Nick Hamilton, Bo Mantanona, Noah Mulvaney, down the line here. Bubba Wilson's in at 19. Connor Uton, is that how you say his name, from Iowa State?
Mm-hmm.
Is at 26. Nico Ruiz from Arizona State, who wrestled Messenbrink really tough, is at 30. And Sammy Sasso is not in the rankings, but has posted he'll be going 65. Flo, Messenbrink, Caliendo, Garvin, Hall, Ramirez, Amin, Thompson, Olgan, Casella, Max Mayfield. They got Barraclaw at 14. That's Cam Steed is another guy from Mizzou at 15, who redshirted last year, barely lost to Muller in the wrestle-off. The team would have been better if Muller went down last year and Steed would have wrestled, and they didn't do that, and ended up scoring no points at either way. So I will say this, and then get out of your way. I feel like Sasso is like Van Ness, right? Like, he's either a top dude or the injury's too much. His injury's completely, I mean, he got shot, for anybody that doesn't remember that, okay? Like, he was a victim of a crime, did nothing wrong, wrong place, wrong time, great kid. I had coaches from all over the country that were telling me what a great kid he was that don't coach him, that were coaching against him but recruited him. So, but he's one of those guys, right? Like, he's probably top 4 or he's not wrestling. I think the second thing is this, GT. I would say the first 6 weights, if you said pick one guy for sure that you think is going to win nationals, I'm picking Mitchell Messenbrink. And that's crazy when you consider Figs won it, Crookham beat Vito Arujau, Aliras has won it, Mendez has won it, Caleb Henson has won it. Okay, like, now I get 41, those guys kind of cancel each other out. Like, hey, that's your point. They both won it. They can't win it. Both of them can't win it this year. Messenbrink, super high bonus rate last year. And feels like this weight cleared. I mean, Caliendo's 2, and he majored him. And Caliendo should be too. So your initial thoughts here on the weight?
Well, I think, like with 65, we had, arguably two of the best guys in the country last year, or within the conversation of pound for pound with O'Toole and Carr. Once again, one of the best collegiate rivalries we've seen in a long time. Basically front running this weight class.
Yes.
So I think also just when you look at kind of, I don't even need to, like, I don't know, the Julian Ramirez of the world, like he had knocked off Carr.
Yeah.
Which once again, that was kind of a crazy match. But kudos to that particular match. Messenbrink, we all kind of saw him throughout the year kind of continue to climb, looking good all the time. And then, of course, like Olynyk basically transferring and going to Oklahoma State. I think this weight class was so good last year. And once again, we had Antrell Taylor at that weight. Now he's back. He's going down to 57. So I think as far as my picks are concerned, I'm going to base a lot of it off of kind of like, I don't know what I've seen so far, but I also kind of have some guys that have maybe never All-American that I think could.
I feel like this is the weight where you pick some dark horses, right? And you could be right. Like some of these weights, like if you take 41, I feel like the top three are the top three, right? Like Alira / Mendez and Bo Bartlett. Like it's going to take a lot to break into that. At 49, we just talking about there's like 6 dudes that are really good that have placed. Like it'd be so you're kind of just picking 7 and 8. Like last year we said, and I didn't do it this way this year because it felt negative. Like how many of the top 8 guys do you think are not going All-American? I'm like, that's a terrible way to put it out there. And that was my idea. So I own it. You guys kind of follow along on the format, but we're doing the same thing, right? Like we take the top 8 and then we just pick our own. I talked to my guy at Fantasy Grade, and he'll have everything updated by the end of the month. So, but the compilation rankings, but really there's 2.5 now. Like, Win doesn't, a lot of these sources don't even put Win out. Intermat's really good. Flow's really good. Those guys that used to do them at track were the best, GT. That Mark and Dave.
For sure. Absolutely. Got it.
They were awesome. All right. You want to go first here?
Yeah, I can go first here.
All right. I'm ready.
All right. Here we go. We're going Mitchell Messenbrink, number 1. I'm going Michael Caliendo 2. I'm going to take Hunter Garvin 3. Take Cam Amin 4. I'm going to take Julian Ramirez 5. Olguin 6. I'm going to take Hall 7. And Barraclaw 8.
Who was 7?
Hall.
Oh, okay.
Peyton Hall.
Yeah, West Virginia, right?
Yep.
In Utah Valley. All right, let me read these back to you. Messenbrink, Caliendo, Garvin, Amin, Ramirez, Olguin, Hall, Barraclaw.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to take the first 3 the same. I don't see a lot of change there. So I think I know your answer to this. Amin's another one of those guys, and his family, he has a ton of family in Michigan. It was kind of surprising that he would transfer to Oklahoma State. And the other ironic thing there, Izzy Olynyk, who's now coaching the girls' club down there, was the one that knocked DJ Hamidi out of the blood round last year. So, it'll be good for Amin, for those 3 guys to get to work out together. I feel like that's one of the things Oklahoma State's done in a pretty short time that's improved things, right? Like, you have a Spratley where he's got like Fix to work out with, but it's different because Fix is not competing all the time. And they got RBY. And then you see I mean, people said Jim. I saw Jimmy Kennedy. You saw him there at the golf outing. Like that guy looks like he could go to a freaking triathlon. you know, like but he's working out. David Taylor's obviously working out. So it just feels like the number of workout partners in the room. And Gilman is obviously another one. So, okay. So I will say this: I can't pick Julian Ramirez anymore. I just can't. I'm going to pick Sasso fourth. I don't know if that's right. I don't have a lot of confidence in it, but I feel like he needs to be in there. I'm going to pick Nico Ruiz fifth from Arizona State. Redshirted last year, was probably the right decision, but was kind of hidden. A lot of people don't know about him, so I'll either look really smart or really dumb. I'm going to take your guy Barraclaw at sixth. I feel like he potentially has the best of both worlds, right, GT? Like, he can be the guy that has all the Penn State habits and the play wrestling and the gratitude. I don't mean that sarcastically, but then get a chance to wrestle. And I think Utah Valley is going to invest a lot in him, because if you're Adam Hall and you can get a guy on the podium, even if he scores 10 points, that's better than 10 guys each scoring 1 point in terms of publicity, recruiting, all that other stuff, what you report to your administration, etc. So I'm going to put Cam Steed 7. And I'm going to put Peyton Hall 8th. So we texted Mark. He will send us his picks. I feel like this is a pretty good stopping point. I think we're just under an hour right now. And I think Mark obviously would want to get in on. I mean, this is Mark's favorite time of the year, picking all this stuff. He sort of tolerates the freestyle stuff. It's not his thing. He does I think he's done a great job of educating himself, GT, but that's not his wheelhouse. This stuff is. And we have no blow-ups yet about Pinheiro and Yanni and who should be ranked number 1 and all that kind of stuff. We've steered clear of that for at least till week 2. So there are some big things coming up, though, just so people know. There's, in the next couple weeks, before we get to college wrestling, there's Super 32, there's preseason nationals. The Veterans Worlds are going on right now, by the way. And then there's the All-Star Meet will be in November. I mean, there's a bunch of things that are popping off. And so I think that's really interesting. This is the time of the year where people kind of start, folk style people get really itchy this time of the year, right? Like it's about their time. So, all right, anything else before we jump off?
I think we're right on the cusp of a lot of wrestling coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So,
the other one I forgot is non-Olympic World. Geez, like I had it written down here, and then that's the 26th weekend. Is that right?
Well, U23s are the week of that. So it's like, I think it's like the 22nd through the 26th. And then the senior part of the non-Olympic World starts, I believe, on the 28th through the 1st.
In the same venue, correct?
Same venue, same city, same everything.
Okay. Is that normal?
I think it's just been, I can't remember what happened in the, I don't want to, 16.
It's okay. I mean, it's just, I don't like, it's not that big of a deal. I don't like, Mark asked me stuff like that time on the air. So, I mean, it's cool though, right? Like, I think for a city to host it and the logistics, and for UWW, it's like, okay, we got a venue. Can you guys just do it for a few days more? You have all the people in place, the referees are there, the announcers are there, especially like you're saying, if there's a break in there for a day where everybody can kind of catch their breath. Like Fargo's kind of done that now. They got that middle day that's a break. And that's good, because people walking across a football field 27 times in 4 hours is, it's a little more difficult than people think. Like if these people that monitor their steps, if they want to get their steps in, just go sign up to be a Fargo coach like that and follow the group chat on what mat you need to go to. You'll get your 10,000 or 12,000 in a day, no problem.
Yep.
All right, guys.
Absolutely.
On behalf of Grant and Mark, I'm David. We appreciate you guys so much for watching and listening, and we will see you all next week.